The sun rises over the Bahamas, casting a golden hue on the turquoise waters, but beneath that shimmering surface lies a darkness that even the brightest rays can't penetrate. Scotland Yard has arrived, a team of detectives with their polished shoes and crisp suits, looking out of place against the backdrop of palm trees and sandy beaches. They're here to investigate, to peel back the layers of corruption that have seeped into every corner of this paradise, the corruption that has become as common as the sound of the waves lapping against the shore. Before Scotland Yard arrived, every day the newspaper headlines would be about murder and crime. Police sirens rang in the streets day after day. However, since Scotland Yard's presence, all violence seems to have ceased. The newspaper now seems to print only the beautiful things that are happening. Is this intentionally as a cover-up, or has the country suddenly become crime-free? It's said that about 80% of the police force is corrupt. Can you imagine that? The very people sworn to protect and serve turn a blind eye to the chaos that unfolds daily. The whispers echo through the streets, tales of officers on the take, pocketing cash from drug dealers, turning their backs on the very crimes they're meant to prevent. The trust that once existed between the community and the police has eroded, replaced by fear and suspicion. People don't call the police anymore. They know that when the sirens wail, it's not for justice, but for a cover-up. And then there's the Prime Minister, a figure cloaked in power and influence, holding the money of the biggest drug dealer in the country. The irony is almost poetic, isn't it? The leader of a nation, a supposed beacon of hope, entangled in the very web of crime that plagues his people. The drug dealer, once a kingpin in the shadows, now extradited to the United States, leaving behind a vacuum filled with violence and desperation. The streets are ruled by gangs, each vying for control, each willing to spill blood to claim their territory. Crime has been high, escalating year after year, and the statistics are staggering. Every day, multiple killings are reported, and weekends are a bloodbath. It's as if the sun sets and the streets become a battleground, with gunfire echoing through the night. 5 people shot at a time, bodies of loved ones lie in the street, and the police are said to have their own gang. Witnesses are often shot before they appear in court. They're either too scared to intervene or too busy counting their bribes to care. The locals have grown accustomed to the violence, a grim acceptance that this is the new normal. They've learned to navigate the treacherous waters of life in the Bahamas, avoiding certain neighborhoods, keeping their heads down, and praying that they won't become the next statistic. Families mourn their loved ones, but the grief is often overshadowed by the fear of retaliation. No one wants to speak out. Silence is the only protection they have left. Scotland Yard's presence is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it brings a glimmer of hope, a promise that someone is finally paying attention. On the other, it's a reminder of how far the situation has deteriorated. The detectives walk the streets, interviewing witnesses, but the answers they receive are often riddled with hesitation and fear. "I didn't see anything," they say, eyes darting around as if the very walls have ears. "I don't want any trouble." And who can blame them? The gangs have eyes everywhere, and retribution is swift and brutal. A witness today could be a target tomorrow. The detectives are met with walls of silence, a community too afraid to speak out against the very criminals who terrorize them. They're faced with a conundrum. How do you solve a crime when no one is willing to cooperate? The detectives gather in their makeshift headquarters, poring over reports and statistics, trying to make sense of the chaos. They know that the corruption runs deep, that the tentacles of organized crime reach into the highest echelons of power. They're not just fighting against the gangs, they're battling a system that has been corrupted from within. The Prime Minister's ties to the drug dealer are a ticking time bomb, and they know that exposing the truth could unleash a wave of violence that would make the current situation seem tame. But they're determined. They've seen the devastation that unchecked crime can wreak on a community, and they refuse to turn a blind eye. They begin to connect the dots, tracing the money and following the leads, and slowly they start to uncover a web of deceit that stretches far beyond the Bahamas. The drug trade is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a global enterprise, and the Bahamas is merely a pawn in a much larger game. For the Haitians who have taken over the drug ring, one police officer was found on his way to Haiti with $80,000 on him, which is involved in human and sex trafficking, organ trafficking, and the gun ring, which the Jamaicans along with Haitians also work with, all the corrupt police force. Moves hand in hand with the Chinese mafia, whose presence is quietly in the Bahamas, is the pouring in of illegal immigrants who build shanty towns and are hired by the Chinese, a cover to hide organized crime, such as all the ones listed along with the missing young schoolboys and girls, the selling of young girls and boys for sex, and the payment to families to be quiet or be deported out of the country. As they dig deeper, they realize that corruption isn't just confined to the police and the politicians. It seeps into every facet of life here. Businesses are extorted, families are threatened, and the very fabric of society is fraying at the seams. The locals are caught in a vicious cycle, forced to choose between compliance and survival. The fear of victimization, life being threatened, and even taken is real in the Bahamas. Has the last 25 years of leadership led to nothing but decay for this formerly owned British colony, where citizens and country all seem to be under martial law or some form of dictatorship, where freedom of movement is limited by paid security officers. As gangs increase and the population increase, although the birth rate in the country does not match the growth of its population, where the Bahamians are being replaced and displaced in their own country. What did it is a new day mean? Did it mean new citizens added by the thousands without care about how the Bahamian people truly felt? Where a good